Welcome to Chill Out. I'm Pam Chill, one of the Highland Park senior producers, and today's program is about home space organization. We're going to cover a great deal of organizing the home, the closets, the office, garages, and possibly even your car, which is what I thought about too. Welcome to my program, Jody Kasten. So glad to have you on. You're an authority on the subject of home space organizing. This is a business you developed in 2011.
Yes.
And you said you traveled to different clients throughout the United States, and I don't know if you travel international as well. But I'm going to give a little brief bio about you. Jody Kasten founded Home Space Organizing in 2011 with a holistic approach to the organizing world. Her background is in art and healthcare, led her to unique perspectives and methodologies. As life and space constantly changes and evolves, so must we with it. I thought that was very impressive, very interesting and holistic. And you also mentioned, we emailed back and forth the spiritual about organizing. And I just wanted to say, because I'm in the process of really organizing, and it's dreadful. I mean, it's a really, really tedious project, and it kind of reflects of who you are and what you've accumulated all those years. So just how do you start?
That's a very good question. It really can be very daunting and very overwhelming to see a space that is chaotic and full of memories and feelings, things you've accumulated from the years. So where do you really start? And how do you envision that outcome to look? So with my artistic background, in art school they taught me about positive and negative space. And so I apply certain things that I've learned in my life and experiences that I've had in my life, and working with clients all over the Chicagoland area, because each person has a unique life and circumstance that leads them to the subject of organizing, asking yourself the questions, So it could start with an object that's exciting to you. I like to start with excitement. I like to try to help people understand that it could really be a playful experience, and trying to envision what the outcome would be, essentially.
Do people have to organize before they call the organizer?
It's
like purging?
My mother would tell me, clean the house because the cleaning lady's coming over.
Right, that's what the same premise that I was thinking too.
Yes.
Right.
It's really the impression, what does your space say about you? It could really speak a lot to what's going on inside of you, too. So are you ready to confront those things that you're feeling? So sometimes when we don't want to, it just continues to evolve and get cluttered and get overwhelming, and to the point where you go, I'll put it off tomorrow, and then you end up in a situation where you have to call an organizer, like me. But it's nice to have someone who's an objective opinion, because it can be a long process. Being an artist, it's hard to say, I'm going to be inspired right now. You really have to get inspired, or look at something that's exciting or challenging, whatever you want, that experience you'd like for yourself. So I try to get to the core of things with people, and that's why organizing to me is not just about the system, the closet system that works for everyone, or the method that Marie Kondo is suggesting for tidying, things like that, that's really popular now. Being a massage therapist too, I understand the importance of coming at life and your body and your being with more of a holistic approach, because everything was reflective of you inside, and your space really can tell you a lot about yourself. So it all just depends on what you'd like for your experience to be. If you want to be frustrated, then have fun, make it a mess, but the process is your own. It's your own process.
Well, some people have a mess, but they actually can find what they're looking for.
Exactly.
Where other people would look at it and go, oh my gosh, how, it's a picture of disorganization, but to them it isn't.
Right. Everyone's got a junk drawer, right? And usually the junk drawer is where you go for everything, because those are the things that didn't have a place, so they got put in the junk drawer. And So I believe that, you know how we heard our grandparents say, everything has a place, you know, everything in its place. You know, make sure that, so I know the importance of having a place for things. And when they don't have a place, you want to ask yourself the questions like, does this serve its function to me anymore? Am I the same person I was when I bought this? When I received this gift or item, did I have a feeling toward it then? Or does it mean anything to me now? And then there are stages, you know. When I help people to transition out of their homes, say they've been there for 20 years and are now ready to move and downsize. I've met people that are downsizing from, you know, 3-bedroom homes to small apartments or even a van or something that's drastically different from the way that they've been living their lifestyle. And it's a really big question you have to ask yourself is, what do I want to take with me? I mean, this is a question that our ancestors were asking themselves. So how far back do you really want to go in the human psyche to talk about organizing in the process and what we consider to be of value? What I think is of value is your time. Time is a value. So when you're looking for your keys or you're looking for, I can't find my...
Or certain papers or certain bills or, yes.
Or you're buying more things. How many times did you have to go to the store and you bought the same thing that you already had, you know, but you couldn't find before? So these things, they add up over time, and what I try to do is help to inspire the creative process so that people that are in their own environments can interact in a healthy way. And then also understand that it's cyclical. So whether you'd like to keep something or get rid of something, that process could be beneficial. So then it's not so painful to let go of that.
Because it seems like you are letting go, and you're letting go of that part of you or that memory or that job that you had and you were, you know.
It's a
what
reminder.
do you need to save? Let's go in reverse. What do you need to save?
What I found interesting first, what I'd like to share with your audience is when I was researching this, I found it very interesting that when we touch things, there's a memory and a part of our brains that connect with that touch. So there was a study where there was an auction and people were coming around this auction booth and the people were saying, okay, hold this mug for an extra 20 seconds. We're going to auction these off, but I want you to hold on to this for an extra 20 seconds and look at it and connect with it. And they showed that the study was that people were more likely to bid on that particular item that they held on to because they had this emotional attachment to it, because they connected with it. So, you know how we have the touch screens now for our phones? Well, Apple took this study, along with many others, and determined that when we touch things, that we connect with them. So they're finding now that when you take a phone away from someone, because, you know, what happens is in the anterior cortex of the brain where we feel pain, associated pain, we have that response go off because we've made that physical attachment to that particular item. So we feel the pain and the loss of that item when it's gone. So this technology is now in our world everywhere. And people are, having a little bit of a hard time understanding, why can't I let this go? It is a biological response. So when I learned that, I found that was very interesting, and that helped me to understand some of the reasons why it was hard for some people to let go of something so simple as a mug or a piece of clothing, something like that. But I believe that if you have the space for it, space is a luxury. If you have this space and you love it and it brings you joy, then it's something that you should have around you. So we should be surrounded by the things that we love, that bring us joy, instead of surrounding ourselves for the sake of something else, which could be either negative, or positive. Mm-hmm. You have to kind of understand what that is and what that feeling is. So it can go very deep, which is why I love to work with clients on a deeper level, on a more holistic level.
A holistic approach to it, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about clothing, we touched on that. Now, papers, I find in my own life, it's just accumulated. We're supposed to be a paperless society, and I don't know what's happened, but,
mail won't stop.
Mail and mail and mail and mail and mail, and then things that you know, if you have stock certificates too. What do you need? I mean, I know original diplomas you have to keep, and original insurance paperwork, and marriage certificates, and income tax returns, and things to corroborate whatever, you know, tax credits that you took for the income tax you have to keep. But beyond that, what do you have to keep and sort and organize?
It would all depend on what you felt would be most important. And then if you have an abundance of those things, what's the best way to keep them safe and accessible? Whether you have 3 filing cabinets, 1 filing cabinet, a closet of papers. I find people that have boxes of papers going back 20 years, 15 years, and it becomes a source of stagnation. So when there's a way in, but sometimes there's not a way out, and that creates congestion. So it's good to have the implements that would help to cleanse it out. So either a paper shredder or a place where you go and you sit in a space so you can interact with your paper. I had a closet full of papers. I'm an artist, so I've got an overflow of notes. I mean, I've met artists and poets. I have a partner with one, and he's prolific. And paper is a huge thing. And then going back and accessing those papers, so you really have to look into it and find the best ways to appreciate your work in the paper. Because if you don't have any connection to it anymore, it ends up falling to the wayside and it becomes the past. So there are ways and methods and implements that you can buy that I specifically source from really eco-friendly resources that I've seen to be tried and true in my process to help with the enjoyment of the process. Because once it doesn't get enjoyable anymore, it's like, it's not enjoyable, and you don't want to further its health along. So you'll end up accumulating more, and then eventually having to look at it and face it and say, I've got a problem.
Which is too much.
Which is too much.
Right, and then you could do filing system, you can do, I was reading color coding and...
I love color coding, yes. I love color coding. I think that's a way to make it fun. I love the older style of paper folders, with the little ridges on the side. Right. You put them in and you can see them and flip through them. I love binders with the plastic sleeves. I love filing cabinets because anything that you can quickly access where it's kept clean, that's a good indication that you're organized, is if it can stay clean. I was in a 5,000 square foot warehouse at one time, and I had to keep my papers. And I remember opening up this filing cabinet, and there was a nest of mice that got into my filing cabinet. And I said, okay, and I'm looking through, and they chewed up all the papers I didn't want anymore. And I said, am I going to look at this in a positive or negative? I threw all those papers out.
They kind of did it for you, didn't they?
Yes, they did. And I thought about it a little bit more, and I said, okay, this didn't work. What's going to work? Someplace that's clean, someplace I feel excited about when I look at it, And that could change. I mean, you could have a big standing filing cabinet, and you could put a plant on top of it, or a nice sculpture, or put it in a different room that's not associated with tasks or chores. Some people will put their filing cabinets in their garage and know that they only have to go there when they need it because there's so much paper. But just like with a closet and your clothing, there's updating. So I really like to encourage maintenance.
How often should you really go back and look at what you've done and then redo?
I like the seasons. I like when the seasons change, like the spring. They say spring
A lot of
cleaning.
people do the spring cleaning. That's when they do their major cleaning, purging.
Tax time,
getting rid of everything, kind of cleaning it all up from the winter and moving forward.
Exactly. When can you do these things that are holistic, that it becomes a ritual almost. And that's why I like to emphasize with my clients how to make sacred space. Your papers can be a sacred experience, your clothing, your kitchen cabinets, really anything. You know, I'm a spiritual person by nature, and I find that in this world, being spiritual is becoming more attractive. Would you say?
Oh, definitely, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And people are connecting to the deeper reasons for things.
Absolutely.
So to know your reasons is very important.
Okay. Let's say you're working with a couple, hypothetically, or maybe you have, and one is extremely organized, and the other one is, you know, borderline hoarder.
I get that a lot, yeah.
Right, and which can really cause a disruption of a relationship.
Absolutely.
So, obviously, you come in, probably the one who's hired you is the organized person, that they just can't take it anymore and they want you to help. And you have to go in and tell them, you know, that they have an issue here and it has to be addressed. How do you go in and do that?
That's a good question. Each person on their own has their own unique perspective and process and reasons for things. To come together and exist under one roof, two people that internally have their own environment, that are expressing themselves, with all that understood, it's important to respect the other person's space. That's why I say space is so valuable. And when you're intending to do something with your partner, there is space for that. So there could be a his and hers filing cabinet, or, you know, the man has his room and the woman has her separate room. I find that very important, that each person is respected for their space and what they need.
Or partners, whatever it is, or roommates, or whatever, you know, interaction, relationship that they have living in the same household. Exactly. You have to have your own space, and you have to be able to get to your own things.
Right.
Right.
And know where they are, because then the other person becomes responsible for not knowing where they are. So there's this codependency thing that happens when you have shared space. I'm constantly being asked where things are because I tend to command the space a bit more, maybe because I'm a woman and I like to nest a little bit more.
So they call you if they can't find something, your clients?
My partner. But usually when it comes to helping people and husbands and wives or partners or roommates, it really is about respecting the other person's space and the space that's intended to be shared. And finding out what the methods, you know, are for that particular intention of the space. Like the kitchen is a common room. The living room is a common room, the bathroom. Sometimes it helps to have a system in place so that both people can respect that. And that's what I like to provide to clients too, is specific methods and ways to increase the functionality of the space, to increase the the way that it's experienced while you're there. I like to bring in a lot of implements that are organic, like wood and copper, stone, things like these that are activating. So that could be very good for the enjoyment, because you would like to enjoy the space with your partner, you know, and not be at odds because one person thinks that it's better this way and the other person thinks it's better this way. So I don't like to go to stores to buy the plastic, things like that. I like to go and source out the things that bring energy into the space.
So you really, everybody's using the plastic, like, you know, kind of cubicles and dividers, and yes. Well, I mean, in a way that is good because you could see what you have without having to label, you know, on top of what each one is or what each box contains. True. So a lot of it is the things that you purchase, which can help you organize. Now, which part of the household do you think needs the most organization on average? No, other than two people alike, but
the office.
Mm-hmm. The home office.
Yeah, a lot of people now are working from home, and how do you balance, your home life with your work life? I had parents that were both entrepreneurs, so I've seen how the home has to function: studio, office, place of family. So I really believe that bringing in all of these organic, vaulted, sacred, surrounding yourself with that positive energy, and allowing for things to be more useful, and getting rid of a lot of what people would call clutter.
What do you call clutter?
I think clutter are things that you no longer connect with anymore, and you have an abundance of that. So it becomes less useful. There's no place in it in your life as you are now, because we're constantly changing. There's always something better coming out. Buy this. This is the next best thing. Get rid of that. That's old news. But some people think it's great 20 years ago, and they kept it. So there's all sorts of reasons why stuff becomes clutter. I personally don't like how there's so much waste. I see a lot of people who are moving and transitioning, and they're letting go of a lot of stuff that is winding up in the landfills. And so there's a serious problem with America and the way that we consume and the way that we're educated into getting rid of it. So I'm really trying to help people identify what that clutter is, because really it's about value. And these things that are plastic and they're one-time use, or they break, or they're bought because you're in a hurry, or you're needing a quick fix or solution, those are the first things that end up going. And what people really want to hold on to are the things that have lasting value. And you can really find things that do have lasting value, that do serve a purpose in really creative ways. Instead of going to the Container Store or these other places where they have the office supplies, and you can just load up on these, and they break, and you end up having to throw them out, and then they take 10,000 years to deteriorate. So it's just about looking at things on a whole before you purchase them and saying, is this going to end up somewhere in a couple years that I don't feel good about? Or can I pass this down to my child or my friend when I purchase this thing, or when I buy this, thing, or I take this thing on? What can I do with this in the future? So it's about legacy to me. It's about the impact we have on our planet. It's about our enjoyment in the space. I'm taking things that may not seem to be a file folder, a place to hold papers, or somewhere to store something important, and we're turning things into these multifunctional, beautiful ways of organizing your life. And it eliminates all of the problems that you would have otherwise. A lot of people are having those problems. I just drove through Highland Park today, and I saw a lot of stuff on the street.
Well, it's our spring cleanup time, right? Mm-hmm. Which, you tend to realize is, people have toys, people have a lot of television sets that are no longer,
yes.
They're not the high definition set, and they're totally useless.
I have some great friends.
Or electronics that are just, so outdated.
So outdated.
Yes.
I have a couple friends who do salvage art, and they take all sorts of pieces of everything. Metal and parts from televisions, and you name it, toothbrushes. Anything you can imagine that would be thrown out, and they make sculptures and installations with them. I have connections with donation companies and causes throughout Chicagoland and abroad. Yes,
because a lot of times, they're very particular in what these. You want to donate furniture, but it's got to be very, very gently used, and
yes.
And there are certain things that they don't even want. No one wants large sofas. No one wants wall units anymore. They're kind of outdated, or very large dining room sets, or buffets, or china cabinets. Those are all from prior generations, and
yes, they say
people don't have the space for that or want it.
Right, and that's what's fascinating to me as an organizer, and I feel my responsibility is to find a way to move that through lives and the system, as it were, and the planet, to keep it revolving and healthy, so that everything has a use. Everything can be broken down and turned into something else or given to make someone else's life easier.
Right. And the whole look has changed. The modern look is very clean.
Yes.
Not a lot going on. You know, I came from the generations where you have a cabinet filled with every little figurine that everyone has ever given you over the years.
Yes. The mentality from the Depression era, right, where you got to keep this because who knows when you're going to get it again,
and that's a memory of, you know, so-and-so and grandma so-and-so and whatever. And
yes.
Right.
And if you really identify, I mean, if you can never get that item back.
No, you can't.
And
so if it does carry sentimental value to you.
It does carry sentimental value, then it's a cherished piece. And your grandkids, even though it's silver and they won't want to polish your silver because grandma had a huge silver collection and it takes a lot of, but she polished them and, you know, it still has a place. I see a lot of people my age, I'm 32, and I see a lot of people my age wanting to go the minimalist route.
That's the way,
Very
minimalist.
clean and to me, it's very sterile. And then there's also my part of my generation who love the organic and they love the storytelling and they love to be surrounded with sentiment and the past and the history. Because it technically is yours to carry on.
Right.
And
you're
really,
the generation who's going to carry that on.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So what can we do with it? How can we honor that in our homes? And there are lots of creative ways you can do that. And that's what I thrive with. And I try to help people to really hold on to the things that bring them joy and to let go of the things in a responsible and healthy manner so that other people can benefit. And I really think that that's where kind of America is going with this crisis of overwhelm and product that doesn't really last as well as it did when they used to
I think
make
we're
it.
getting less materialistic. We are and we aren't, and it's a very fine line. But
is.
we just have like about 1 minute left. And what would you say is the biggest tip that you can give someone who's starting to just organize and feels overwhelmed?
Okay, I would say sitting in that space of overwhelm in your space. If you can sit there and close your eyes and breathe, take the time, close your eyes and breathe, and feel everything around you, and imagine in your mind what you're looking for it to be. What does that space look like finished? How you want it to be. And open your eyes again and see the state that it's in. Close your eyes again. Imagine what you'd like it to be. And allow for yourself to be in the space. And look at, because it could start with the smallest thing. It could start with the biggest thing. So it really depends.
And do one room at a time.
One thing at a time.
One thing at a time. Don't overwhelm yourself and start taking everything apart.
But visualize it first. Because once you visualize it, you can create it in your space.
Well, thank you so much, Jody Kasten.
Thank you.
You have Home Space Organizing. And do you want to give your website or your phone number real quick to
Sure.
get in contact with you? Yeah.
Sure. My phone number is 847-209-0083. And please email me at homespacesolution@gmail.com. I would love to speak with you about your unique circumstance and help you with your home space anywhere.
Alrighty. Thank you so much, and thank you for appearing on Chill Out.
Thank you very much for
for
having me.
anyone else who has any ideas about any future programming, I am always here. They can do diamondpam2@gmail.com if they have any future ideas or know of somebody who is something very interesting to share. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.